From the porch of our cottage, cottage number 2 at the 103rd OVI, one could watch the Lake Erie sunsets while the strains of We're Tenting Tonight, along with other vintage patriotic songs, wafted across the campgrounds. And so it is this evening that we gather for a final sunset and taps for a lady who can only be described as a legend by those who knew her. She was a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and friend. But to my brothers, sisters, cousins, and me, she was Aunt Edna. On behalf of Roger, Lori, Diana, and Bev, and their families, we want to thank you all for being here this evening to pay tribute to this very special lady. Now, she loved that cottage. One of the original cottages at the OVI, as she would proudly remind you and anybody else, and looked forward to being there each and every summer. It was that connection to the OVI that instilled her fierce sense of patriotism from a very early age, and it only grew and deepened as the years went by. She flew the American flag 24/7 in her front yard on Northridge Road, and her home was festooned with patriotic memorabilia. Now, a brief family history. My dad, Oliver, was Uncle Glenn's brother, and we lived next door to Aunt Edna and Uncle Glenn. Their sister, our Aunt Margaret Thompson, lived 2 doors down. It was kind of like the Kennedy compound without being Catholic. Now, when you grow up next door to someone basically your whole life, you no doubt have countless memories and experiences. Well, our families literally shared a driveway. We were only separated by a lush green yard. We saw each other every day, and our cousins were as close as siblings. Now, I think that most of you know or may remember that my mom and dad, Olive and Oliver, had Bemus florist on Northridge. Well, come holiday time, Easter in particular, extra hands were always needed to handle the volume of work and orders that would accompany that holiday. Without even asking, Aunt Edna, along with Uncle Glenn, were always part of helping to get that work done and delivered. Now, after our dad passed on in 1962, that help became even more valuable. Without even asking, Aunt Edna would come down to the shop, help make corsages, arrange funeral bouquets, and service weddings. Mom was eternally grateful to have that help and support only a few steps away. Now, Christmas was also another extremely busy time in the florist shop, and work would often not be completed until late on Christmas Eve. Well, one year, Aunt Edna said, "Come on over after the shop is closed for sloppy joes and chips." Well, thus began a Christmas Eve tradition that lasted for nearly 50 years. As the years went on and the families grew, it became a holiday tradition that we always looked forward to. Now, the number of people in the menu may have evolved and grown into more than sloppy joes and chips, but the sentiment and love remained the same. What Aunt Edna deeply cared about the most was her family. It was at the top of her list. She was involved, interested, supportive of her kids and grandkids, and yet she never offered her own personal opinion of how they should run their lives. Wait, what? That's a typo of some sort. Of course, nobody knew Aunt Edna like her own children and grandchildren, several of whom would now like to share some of their personal recollections. Roger?
Everyone here this evening, of course, knew our mom, and in many cases knew her very well. But while her family knew most of her early history, here are some fun facts about Mom that the rest of you may not know. Born on December 12, 1930, Mom grew up north of Ashland, Ohio, in the little country town of Ruggles. Her parents, Joe and Ellen Atkinson, had a small country store and also a gas pump, which was the main source of income through all the Depression years and into the 1940s. She attended and graduated from Ruggles High School and was considered the prettiest girl in her class. As there were only 5 people in her class and she was the only girl, it was pretty much an unchallenged claim. Her father, Joe, also baled hay and straw for many local farmers, as well as hauling livestock to market for them. If you can believe this, my mother used to drive a team of horses to help her father in the fields, and later graduated to driving a tractor. Now, because she was working outdoors so much in the summertime, she ended up getting a great tan, which is one of the things that attracted my father to her. He thought she hung out at the beach. Little could he have imagined the truth behind her golden figure. My folks met at a square dance at the 103rd OVI during Camp Week of 1948. He began to flirt with her by giving her hand a little squeeze during the Alaman left. People from the 103rd know what that is. There was definitely a spark between them and mutual interest. But when Camp Week was over, Dad had promised to drive his mother to California to visit family and friends. He was supposed to call Mom when he returned a month later. However, when he failed to call her, an old female neighbor of my dad's, who was now attending nurses training in Elyria with my mom, pushed my mom to call him herself. My mom, being up to the challenge, called him, and one would say the rest is history. He was glad to hear from her and started dating immediately. Things quickly moved along, and by Christmas of 1948, they were engaged, much to the distress of his mother, Mom Bemus. During that engagement period, they bought a 40-acre farm in LaGrange and moved there upon their marriage in April of 1949. Rather than dairy cows, they purchased some sheep to raise on the farm. My dad's main job was working at the GM plant in Elyria. As it was shift work, Mom was left alone much of the time to take care of me, as well as watching after the sheep. Unfortunately, the sheep were notorious for getting out of the fenced-in field where they were put. One day, while my dad was at work, a neighbor farmer came by the house and asked Mom if she would like to buy some sheep. You guessed it. The sheep had gotten out and ended up a mile down the road at his farm. With me on my mom's hip, she had to round up the wandering herd and get them back to our farm. Mom had had enough of wrangling sheep and a small child, so the sheep were sold. My mom loved to sing. She loved musicals. When we were growing up, she would be cooking in the kitchen and singing along with Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals such as South Pacific and Carousel. As others learned of her vocal talents, she was asked to perform at many different events and was in demand as a substitute soloist at many Christian Science churches in the area, even as far away as Ashland. It is impossible to include all that was a part of my mom's 91 years, nearly 91 years. But of all the things that she did and was good at, loving her family gave her the most satisfaction and pride. Mom was totally devoted to Dad, and he to her. Every day, Dad would say to her, "How did I get so lucky to be married to such a beautiful woman in the world?" That, of course, brought a big smile to her face. And while we already missed her, no doubt, Dad is once again squeezing her hand, and she is loving it.
Thank you, Roger. I love that story of Uncle Glenn squeezing her hand to show interest when they first met. Knowing Uncle Glenn, that was no doubt the last time that only her hand was squeezed. Mothers and daughters have a special bond, as well as challenges. Lori, Diane, and Bev would now like to share special memories that they had with their mom. Lori?
Sorry, I'm a little hoarse tonight, been talking a lot, so hopefully you can hear me. Early in my childhood, we moved from the farm on Diagonal Road in LaGrange to 930 Northridge Road. The house had been built by our grandfather, Clifford Bemus, and our dad had grown up in that house, so it was very much like going home for him. Over the years, Mom made it her home and furnished it with her taste. At one point, she even tried a Danish modern theme, complete with avocado green shag carpeting. Not one of her better choices. But eventually, it was restored to its original beauty with, of course, lots of red accents. Our house was in the Clearview School District, which was particularly meaningful to our family in that our grandfather was one of the founding board members of what was originally called Highland High School. Dad was very proud of that association, and it extended to Mom, who, like Dad, was said to bleed Clearview blue and gold. The four of us, as well as all our cousins, graduated from Clearview, and Mom was always involved in all the various school activities. She was a band supporter, attended every sporting event and performance that her children and grandchildren were involved in, and in her earlier years even worked the famous Clearview banquets. But while Mom loved Clearview, she never turned her back on her alma mater, Ruggles High School. She attended the class reunion every single year since her graduation in 1948, usually wearing a new outfit she had made. She claimed to be able to still fit into her cheerleading outfit, as well as play the cello, but we never saw nor heard evidence of that. After Dad's retirement, my folks discovered their love for cruising. Dad had worked on the lake freighters at one point and loved being back on the water. The two of them took nearly 40 cruises together, and often included the family on many of them. We all have so many wonderful memories of sailing with Mom and Dad to various exotic ports. Those memories and so many others will live in our hearts forever. Thank you. Thanks, Cliff.
Though I have many good memories of Mom, I will forever be grateful for how much she helped me with my boys. "41 years ago, I became a nervous new mother, and from the very beginning, Mom was right there with me to help and give advice. When circumstances changed and I found myself single and working, Mom and Dad stepped in and helped me with Rick. They provided a safe, secure, and loving home for him, taking him everywhere. It is hard to say who enjoyed themselves more. They made my life so much easier knowing that I never had to rely on daycare, and I am forever grateful. My family grew to 4 rambunctious boys. Actually 5 if you count Gary. Believe me, the toilet seat was never down in our house. Anyway, when my twins, Kevin and Colin, came along, Mom stayed with me night and day for 2 full weeks, caring for us all. Never complaining, she went above and beyond. When Colin had tummy troubles in the night and struggled to get to sleep, Mom would take him into bed with her, holding him on her chest until he would finally drift off to sleep. As my boys grew, I could count on both Mom and Dad for anything and everything when it came to them. They would drop them off and pick them up from preschool, get them off the bus, and feed them with snacks and love. Mom shared her love of sewing, teaching them to sew pillows that they still have to this day. They also have good memories of cleaning her sewing machine, getting fuzz and threads out of every nook and cranny. And she also couldn't pass up the opportunity for free labor and have them clean the windows or dust the furniture. And Mom was not only my boy's caregiver, but also my extra brain. She was an expert on all of my boys, knowing their firsts and favorites better than me. As a busy mom myself, this was a gift to me. As the boys entered sports and activities, you could always count on Mom to be there, supporting them and cheering them on. As time passed, my little boys became adults and the tables turned. After Dad died and Mom became a widow, my boys became her caregivers, faithfully texting and calling Mom and becoming experts on her needs. They were her handymen, furniture movers, mail bringer-inners, and lawn maintenance men. They were her listeners, confidants, and therapists. And again, it's hard to tell who enjoyed themselves more. Mom, I am a better mom because of you. My boys are better people because of you. Thank you for everything. In closing, and in the spirit of my mother, I want to remind everyone here, as she always reminded us, to drive thoughtfully on the way home.
I inherited many things from my mom. Mom had a great love for dishes and glassware. She has cupboards upon cupboards full of different sets of dishes fit for specific occasions. On Thanksgiving, her table was always set with yellow-rimmed plates with wheat stalks in the middle, originating from her father's grocery store in Sullivan. At Christmas, she would always set out stacks of Christmas tree plates for her annual Christmas Eve gathering. Even though she hosted as many as 50 people, she always insisted and bragged about using real dishes, not throwaway ones. My mom loved dishes, and so do I. Mom loved to host gatherings. She spent considerable time and effort planning and preparing the meal and setting a tablescape. Some of my happiest memories are from around Mom's table. Mom loved hosting, and so do I. Mom loved clothes. She took great pride in her appearance and was always seen dressed to the nines. And her favorite color? Red. Mom loved red so much that she became known as Redna to many. Mom loved red, and so do I. Mom loved to sew. From her own 1950s housewife wardrobe to special outfits for holidays, concerts, and first days of school for her children and eventually grandchildren, she put her talents to work outfitting those she loved most. She taught me to sew at a young age, and we did many projects together, setting up our sewing machines side by side. We called it our sweatshop. I loved going to the fabric store with her to pick out patterns and material. Mom loved sewing, and so do I. Mom loved the 103rd OVI. She looked forward to each and every camp week and the promise of all of her family being together. She proudly and faithfully mixed the pancake batter for every pancake breakfast for the past 20 plus years. In the past couple years, she didn't always feel up to mixing and reluctantly passed on the whisk to me. I will continue her pancake mixing legacy. And Mom, I promise I won't overmix. Mom loved the 103rd, and so do I. I'm sure it will not surprise many of you here that Mom had trouble sleeping past 5 a.m. or so. My sisters and I would text her every morning and were often greeted with the daily sleeping report. Good morning, Mom, I would say. Have a great day, everyone, Diana and Lori would chime in. I've been up since 4:30. Mom would reply, adding inappropriate emojis. Mom, the volcano emoji isn't a sunrise. And yes, you do need those glasses. Mom had an inability to sleep past 5 a.m., and so do I. However, that is the last time you will hear from me about what time I woke up. Mom could also be very stubborn, which is why we were often at odds. Mom could be very stubborn, and so can I. And finally, Mom was passionate about her family. Mom was passionate about her family, and so am I.
Thank you, girls. Now, grandchildren almost always have a different experience in relationship with their grandparents than those of their mothers and fathers. They have their own special and unique perspectives, as well as their own set of grandma memories. Katie, Krista, and Oliver would now like to share some of theirs.
Hello, everyone. First, I have a few remarks from my cousin Emily. She had reached out and just wanted me to let everyone know that she really wishes she could be here and that she loved Grandma dearly. And she asked me if I would just share a few of her favorite memories of Grandma. She just loved how much Grandma loved hosting, that Grandma was never happier than when her home was bursting at the seams with friends and family. Emily loved how proud Grandma was of her family. And she loved the comfort and care that they gave each other through the years. Okay, now for my part. Edna, or Redna, as we like to call her, was many things. Doting wife to my Grandpa Glenn, loving mother of Roger, Lori, Diana, and Beverly, devout Christian Scientist, a proud patriot, a staunch Republican, an expert seamstress, frequent cruiser, hostess with the mostest, fashionista, and one of the oldest and most passionate OBIers. But most importantly to us, she was Grandma. While everyone here in this room loves her dearly, we also all know she could be a tad bit opinionated, maybe just a little bit stubborn. However, she truly excelled as a grandma. She would attend every, and I mean every function any and all of us ever had. Band concerts, sporting events, award ceremonies. She was always there, front and center, and so genuinely proud of all of us and made sure to tell us that. Grandma was also our fiercest defender. Other kids might do wrong, but not her grandkids. Once after Grandpa was gone, she wanted to have a bonfire to burn up a brush pile of yard waste. So naturally, 15-year-old Garen was put in charge. This little bonfire turned into a blazing inferno with flames shooting at least 40 feet in the sky. Obviously, some nervous neighbors called the fire department. As the fire trucks pulled up, sirens flashing, lights blaring, Grandma marched out there in her robe and slippers and met the firemen in the driveway and said, "These are my grandchildren, this is my property. And they have my permission to have a little bonfire and roast marshmallows." They kindly gave us a little warning and told us to get it under control. I think my very favorite thing about Grandma was that she was so happy to have all of her grandkids and family together and having fun. She honestly was a saint when it came to camp week and having all of us in the cottage. She not only put up with all of our shenanigans, but actually got in on the fun. I know there isn't anyone in this room who has ever been to her cottage and didn't have her point out the crocheted duck hot glued to the ceiling. I think it actually became her favorite architectural detail of the cottage. If we were having fun, she was unbelievably tolerant. She would come downstairs and ask what we were baking at 1 a.m. and actually wouldn't scold us and tell us to go to bed. I apologized to her once for being up late and laughing into the wee hours of the morning in the cottage. And she said that yes, she heard us up late giggling, but hearing her grandkids having so much fun together brought her so much joy, and she wouldn't want it any other way. For me, that's her lasting legacy, the deep love and appreciation of family that she imparted in all of us. And that's the most important gift she could have given us. It's a gift that will stay with us long after she's gone. I love you, Grandma, and I'll miss you dearly. Before I start my reminiscences, I want to address something. At that bonfire that Katie referenced, when the fire department was called, she failed to mention what she and I did. So we, as the most senior attendees, when the fire department showed up and the siren stopped at Graham's, we took off into the cornfield behind the house, leaving 15-year-old Karen to fend for himself. I just want to publicly say we love you, Karen. We're very grateful for you and your signature Glenn Bemis level-headedness. And I am also fairly certain that faced with the same circumstances today, we would do the exact same thing. And one more thing. Katie was 100% right about Grandma's love and tolerance of our loud, late-night camp week shenanigans. In fact, just this past camp week, when she hosted my rambunctious family of 6, she was far more concerned that she disturbed us, scraping her walker across the floor during her midnight bathroom trips, than being disturbed by us. And oh, she would absolutely hate that I just disclosed to you that she used a walker to get to the bathroom. So please forget that I said that, or I'm going to be in big trouble. Though many of you here know my grandma for many things, her first claim to fame that I can remember was sewing. With her needle-pulling thread, year after year, every Christmas, Grandma made matching pajamas for all her grandchildren. The girls got nightgowns with lace cuffs, and the boys got pants and matching button-up tops. Her skill, precision, and joy rivaled that of Julie Andrews and her drapery-clad Von Trapp children. I always loved my Christmas nightgowns and admired my grandma's love and talent for sewing. So around age 10, I asked her to help me learn. That summer, we hunkered down over the cottage table to do just that, learn to sew. And the results were mixed. The cute shirt dress I worked so hard on didn't fit. Not to mention that sewing turned out to be a lot harder than I had ever imagined. They must have cut out that scene of Julie Andrews bent over a table, figuring out how to cut out all those drapery dresses on the bias, ripping out seam after seam, and drawing blood on an errant stray pin. But I digress. The time I spent with my grandma and my memories of learning from her are priceless and truly worth all the frustration. As I grew, my grandma's sewing grew with me. Her love cut, stitched, and serged together many of my dresses for my high school formals. I'll always remember the excitement of meeting at Joann Fabrics at the table in the back to flip through the books of patterns when they finally went on sale. And if she didn't make my dress, she often flexed her Bemus florist skills, making wrist corsages and boutonnieres. In fact, she made the boutonniere for my date to the homecoming dance my junior year. And when I was struggling to pin it on him, she dutifully stepped in and pinned the boutonniere on my extremely embarrassed, red-faced date. We have a picture of it, and it's fantastic. For those of you who don't know, my junior year homecoming date was David Gemmel, a young man who would eventually become my husband 7 years later. And when I walked down the aisle to stitch my life, my heart, and my future to his, the wedding dress I wore was an Edna Bemis original. Though her sewing skills waned as she aged, she turned her talents to her family. She continued to stitch us together with every holiday she hosted, camp week attendance she encouraged, and every little bit of family information she passed along. Mom, Aunt I, Aunt B, you have big shoes to fill, passing along family information. If you ladies don't step up, how else will we know when Colin has the sniffles? When Katie buys yet another dress? When Rhett does something beyond adorable? Or that Krista forgot to cash yet another birthday check? Oh, and by the way, she's not responding to my text messages either. Sorry, Greg. The torch has been passed, and we trust the three of you to take up the family bat signal and keep us all informed. We will miss our beloved seamstress. From here on out, every seam stitched and garment sewn without her will feel awkward and ill-fitting. But I believe that what she has stitched together and labored over, the seams of family and tradition and love, these seams are true and strong and will hold for years to come. We love you, Grandma.
Grandma touched my life in so many ways that it would be a disservice to try and do a whirlwind tour. So instead, I'd like to share a few special memories that come to mind. In particular, all of the wonderful food she made and shared with me, especially her desserts. I would be remiss if I didn't mention her Grandma Bemis cookies, as you can see on your way out. Firm on the outside, yet soft inside and topped with either sugar or raisins. Or her special Christmas Eve red, white, and green layered Jell-O. Last year, we attempted to make that layered Jell-O, and I gained a new appreciation for just how long this takes to assemble. Or perhaps I should say how long it should take to assemble. We rushed the chilling process and ended up with an unrecognizable mess that never saw the light of day, just the inside of a trash can. One of my favorite Jell-O dishes that Grandma made at most holidays was her neon-colored Jell-O salad. As a kid, I couldn't get enough of the stuff, eating huge mounds at every opportunity. She knew it was my favorite and would always send some home with me. When I was in college, sometimes I was unable to make it home for some holiday celebrations, but she would entrust the delivery of the Jell-O salad to my parents to make sure I got my delicious treat. I was very touched that she made sure I could enjoy the dessert she knew I loved so much. Speaking of desserts I loved, I can't leave here without talking about the many delicious pies Grandma made. Too many flavors to name, but one does stand out in my mind. Her rhubarb pie, made with fresh rhubarb picked from Grandma and Grandpa's garden. Deliciously sweet and tangy. When Deborah and I were getting married, we decided to do pies for dessert. And having Grandma's rhubarb pie immediately came to mind. So we asked Grandma if she would make some rhubarb pies, and we would have parents, aunts, siblings make other flavors to add to the spread. However, when we checked in on Grandma's progress, we learned that not only had she made all the rhubarb pies, but all the pies, in every flavor for over 100 people. We were blown away. As was the case with all of her cooking, she put so much love into those pies that it made the wedding celebration all the sweeter. I am filled with great sorrow that Grandma's gone, but I know whenever I enjoy any of these sweet treats, particularly rhubarb pie, I am reminded of her love for us all.
package deal. I will say Grandma always knew who each other were. Can't say the same about Grandpa, but Grandma like some of my other cousins said, thinking about Grandma, I think about the endless love and support she showed for her family. It's pretty amazing to think of all the activities us grandchildren were involved in, and she would be right there with Grandpa for every event, even after Grandpa passed away. She'd be so proud of all of our accomplishments, some would say a little too proud, but making sure to tell everyone and anyone she knew. Colin and I were very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Grandma growing up, having spent our days after school with Grandma and Grandpa until Mom would get off of work. The memories are endless, from playing games, reading books, cleaning the house, Grandma's little helpers as she sewed, baking, and decorating for the holidays. I think she prepared us well to be great housewives. And it was a nice contrast to our more physical activities with Grandpa outside, from gardening and mowing the lawn and raking leaves. Although I'm sure there were times where she didn't feel like having us over for the day, never did we feel not welcomed or unloved. She's a big reason for who we are today, and I will be forever grateful for her time and love and support. So to shed more light on Grandma's playful humor, I want to just share a story more recently. So on a recent note, COVID gave me a very unique opportunity to spend quality time with my grandma. I was recently furloughed, didn't have any money coming back, moved back with my parents, and Grandma had the great idea to hire me doing odd jobs around the house. Honestly, she couldn't have cared less whether I was actually working or not, but she just wanted me there to have deep conversations about life, politics, and family. But one of the major jobs I tackled while I was there was cleaning the outside windows, which I think my mom mentioned before. So as I was closely examining the windows, looking at them, not through them, as you're trying to see the streaks and the sunlight's blaring in, thinking I'm all by myself, my grandma must have got bored and boom, all of a sudden her face is in my face, nearly falling off the ladder. She got such a rise out of that, she decided to do that every 15 minutes. So, in closing, over the years, Kevin and I, you could say, unofficially became Grandma's therapist. Okay? She wanted to share some of her deepest thoughts and opinions with us. She just wanted someone to talk to. And one statement that became kind of a reoccurring theme with Kevin and I was that she just didn't understand why everyone waited to stand up and say nice things about people at their funeral. Some of you might chuckle. She would say, I would like to hear nice things about me now while I'm still alive. And having Grandma and our Aunt Olive, who lived to be 90 and 101, you take it for granted and you just assume there's going to be another holiday, another phone call. And that wasn't the case recently. So we asked that you guys go home tonight and share one nice thing to your loved ones while they're still here with you right now.
Thanks, guys. Edna belonged to that exclusive club who actually could tell those two apart. Of course, every single one of us has some quirks, idiosyncrasies, traits that apply to us and often become part of the narrative in describing a person. And Edna had a few. Competition is one that comes to mind. As we have been previously mentioned, she was a proud mother and grandmother, and she was not about to have anyone or anything outshine her lineage. This past summer, I was driving her to church every Sunday, and one Sunday she said, so Cliff, who are some of the famous actors that you've worked with? And I said, shocked by the question, first of all. And I said, well, Clint Eastwood, Angela Lansbury, Judy Garland's daughter, Lucille Ball's daughter. She said, well, Beverly was a thespian. She got me. As we've also heard, cooking was another competition arena, whether it was challenging Sue Carter as to who made the best coconut cake. I hear that blood was actually drawn over that argument. Or anyone who even dared to claim that they made a better Grandma Bemis cookie. In her eyes, there was simply no competition. Even No, I actually make the best ones. Another well-known trait was that of Aunt Edna's was her thriftiness, something that I'm almost certain she learned from Uncle Glenn. I remember hearing her complain one time that to save money, Uncle Glenn would turn the stove off while she was cooking dinner, claiming that it would cook the rest of the way on its own. Now, she could quote the daily price of gas at over 50 service stations in Lorain County. Loved a bargain, especially at Kohl's, would proudly announce the savings she had made on any particular purchase and saw no need in spending absolutely anything more than was possible on anything. In fact, I have to watch the time we have to get the rental casket back by now. However, thriftiness is not to be confused with generosity, as Edna was more than generous when it came to the OVI church and her family. Now, when Edna met Glenn, she was actually in nursing school at Elyria Memorial Hospital. But through Glenn, she was introduced to Christian Science, and she became a devout follower and dedicated church member for the rest of her life. Now, the basic foundation of Christian Science is the belief that man is not material, he is spiritual. So death of the material body is not the end, but merely a transition into our true spiritual identity. I've asked Polly to share more on this.
Just takes a moment here. Well, good evening. I'm about to share some spiritual readings with you. Whether you knew her as mom, grandma, Gigi, aunt, cousin, church member, OVI member, neighbor, or friend, you knew Edna loved her home and was happiest when her family could be there. In their early days of marriage, Edna and Glenn lived in a farmhouse on Diagonal Road in LaGrange as they were building a new house next door. Then they decided to move to the Bemus homestead on North Ridge in Lorain, and many years later they built a lovely new home across the road. She took great pride in her home and filled it with everything red. She loved having her family gather there. Today, Edna has passed to a new home, better than all the rest, a spiritual home, free from stress and full of love, a spiritual resting place. With that in mind, I'd like to share the following readings. First, from the Bible, Psalms. How amiable are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts! My soul longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh crieth out for the living God. Blessed are they that dwell in thy house. They will be still praising thee. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Who redeemeth thy life from destruction, who crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. O Lord, thou hast pleaded the causes of my soul. Thou hast redeemed my life. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. It is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. This is the record that God hath given to us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. Now is Christ risen from the dead, and become the first fruits of them that slept. For in him we live and move and have our being. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God. Believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. He that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The Lord is my light and my salvation. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And now from Science and Health, with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Glory be to God, and peace to the struggling hearts. Christ hath rolled away the stone from the door of human hope and faith, and through the revelation and demonstration of life in God, hath elevated them to possible at-one-ment with the spiritual idea of man and his divine principle, love. Life is, always has been, and ever will be independent of matter, for life is God, and man is the idea of God, not formed materially, but spiritually, and not subject to decay and dust. The great truth in the science of being, that the real man was, is, and ever shall be perfect, is incontrovertible. For if man is the image, reflection of God, he is neither inverted nor subverted, but upright and godlike. Man governed by immortal mind is always beautiful and grand. Each succeeding year unfolds wisdom, beauty, and holiness. Life is eternal. We should find this out and begin the demonstration thereof. Man is not the offspring of flesh, but of spirit, of life, not of matter. Because life is God, life must be eternal, self-existent. Life is the everlasting I am, the being who was and is and shall be, whom nothing can erase. Nothing really has life but God, who is infinite life, hence all is life, and death has no dominion. In infinite life and love there is no sickness, sin, nor death, and the scriptures declare that we live, move, and have our being in infinite God. We should remember that life is God, and that God is omnipotent. It is the living Christ, the practical truth, which makes Jesus the resurrection and the life to all who follow him indeed. We all must learn that life is God. All the varied expressions of God reflect health, holiness, immortality, infinite life, truth, and love. The understanding, even in a degree, of the divine all-power destroys fear and plants the feet in the true path, the path which leads to the house built without hands, eternal in the heavens. Home is the dearest spot on earth, and it should be the center, though not the boundary of the affections. Pilgrim on earth, thy home is heaven. Edna, Mom, Grandma, Aunt, friend, you are the guest of God. To those leaning on the sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Amen.
You've heard us talk this evening about the square dances at the OBI. It's where Glenn and Edna met. Those square dances were part of our family's lives growing up. The sound of Elsie's voice could be heard beyond the dance hall walls and across the entire campgrounds. Pistol packin' mama, oh Johnny oh, and the Virginia reel brought every single man, woman, and child to their feet to dance, and in some cases more or less slam dance across the floor. But each square dance ended with this same beautiful waltz.
More blue.
am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength, and I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and the sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she's gone. Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living weight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," there are other eyes watching her coming and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "There she comes." And that is dying.
Wedding bells will ring so merrily. Every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again.
And Edna, you'll always be with us at the OBI Square Dance.
So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again.
Well, we're going to conclude our time here in just a moment. And we want to thank all of you for coming. And farewells are very difficult. Letting go of someone you treasure is a hard thing to do, but the fact that you've all gathered with the immediate family to let them know that they are not alone, that you're standing with them,